Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to my YouTube channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and today for you I have another Sprocket Community Steel video, episode 22 in fact. And today we're going to kick the video off with Sean Lennox and his R55 VPK. And this is an early war tank, medium weight, around 27 tons. It's kind of a little on the heavier side, but won't judge too hard, especially because it's got the side skirts, giving an additional spaced armor to the vehicle. It does have an 85mm gun, and while it's not a perfect replica, it kind of sort of reminds me of like a pseudo T-34-85 with kind of like a mini King Tiger turret. It's not like it's not a perfect T-34-85 turret for sure. Not quite sure where to place the turret, but either ways, it's a rather decent looking, interesting design. It's kind of got a high, it kind of sits high on the ground, which would actually help me quite a bit since I always seem to find a way to get tanks stuck, which is probably why he sent this to me now that I think about it. Now, the one thing I will say is the accuracy, or the shell velocity, if you will, isn't really the best on this thing. It is really good close range, but at farther ranges, it's not very good. Gun-wise, most of the vehicles that I have at early war period, this thing penetrates with very little trouble. Now, the Matilda there, I did have some trouble with, but that being said, well, it's the Matilda, and it's actually one of my tougher tanks to penetrate. Actually, probably one of the toughest in this time period, short of the Challenger gun carrier, which I believe the Challenger gun carrier's got more armor than the Matilda does. But either ways, it does handle its own pretty good, gets shot up quite a bit, bounces a lot of shots, and it just keeps on going. Another Matilda kill, there we go, got another Matilda too. And as you can see, you got the spare fuel tanks there. So it's kind of an odd but interesting design, and it kind of looks like one of those things that I feel like right now I inspired the design looking at, you know, how high the road wheels sit off the ground. Like, yeah, Bjorn gets his tank stuck all the time. I'm going to show him. Anyway, let's get on to the next vehicle here. And what we have here is the Type 279P, and this is from German training. And only German train could do this, and you see why. Yes, folks, this Type 279, which is essentially an Object 279, actually has quad tracks. I haven't seen anyone else do quad tracks yet. Just German train. I don't know how he did it. Didn't think to ask him. Just went, hey, that's actually got quad tracks. I like it. And it is armed with a 105mm gun, and it weighs in at almost 82 tons. It is actually rather mobile for being such a big tank, although it's not like the heaviest tank I have for a late war period, but it's for tanks of its weight class, it's got rather good mobility. It does get up and go. And the armor is actually rather quite effective. The armor just seems to bounce everything, which, being, you know, that's kind of how why the Object 279 was designed the way it was designed. And it's definitely a very cool design, so people go on and bug him. How did you do the quad tracks? Maybe it took him a hell of a long time to do them. Besides the quad tracks in German train, we have another one here today from German train, and this is the Type 279E. Now, this is more influenced by the premium Object 279 and World of Tanks. That's, well, I mean, it's an Object 279 that never really got off the drawing board anyway. For some odd reason, though, the armor's not really effective on this. The Centurions had no problem penetrating this vehicle. Couldn't even quite figure out where it was penning. But there it is. This one doesn't do very good. It looks good, but it doesn't do very good. Let's move on to the next vehicle here. And the next vehicle we have is from Coast. It's Ghost with a C, folks. 05. And this is his GC35. Now, it does have an interweave suspension, so it's kind of got that more German-like suspension. But to me, it feels like it was kind of inspired by an assault tank like the T-14. It feels really inspired by the American heavy T-14 assault tank. That was a prototype. And this is a mid-war tank armed with an 86mm gun and has 154.8 millimeters of penetration. So it does actually quite well in the penetration department. Although I did have some problems lobbing shells out at the extreme ranges that I was getting on fields. That being said, you know, I'm not always very good at dropping the shots where they are, and sometimes it takes me a few, you know, kind of ranging shots to get how the gun feels. So I'm sure for him, he's probably got absolutely no problems or very little problems dropping the shells right where he wants them. But that's the difference between me, the guy messing with the tank, showing it off, versus the designer itself. So that may be a flaw. That's definitely a flaw. I feel it's a flaw that can be overlooked and basically practice. You can overcome it with practice. It's something he probably doesn't have a problem with. Otherwise, the tank is solid. It seems like it's got decent armor. It's not the fastest thing I ever drove, especially for a mid-war, but I don't believe it's meant to be. You know, so there you go. And it is a heavier weight tank. It's not medium tank weight. Now, one thing I do have to say is, though, is once you do get up and going in this thing, it just goes. So it's kind of like one of those, it takes a little bit to get her to spool up. But, yeah, it goes from there. So slow acceleration, good top speed, good mobility once you get it really revving. There we go. Put one right through that PZ756R. That's actually my design. That is essentially a German captured KV-1 that actually had the main gun replaced. Let's move on to the next vehicle, and the next vehicle is also from Coast, and this is his GMT C2, or more or less a Challenger 2. Now, this isn't the first time I've shown a Challenger 2, but this is the first Challenger 2 I'm showing from the new 0.113 update, where we can kind of mess around with how the tanks are built a bit more because of add-on structures and different types. We have a little bit more freedom in turret shaping and things of that nature. And this is armed with a 140 millimeter main gun. Kind of surprised he didn't go with the 130 though, because of the new Challenger 3 having the 130 millimeter main gun. And it's got 240 millimeters of penetration. So for a late war tank, it will penetrate most of the vehicles I have uploaded in my game. Actually, if not everything. Probably, I think it actually will penetrate everything I have currently in my folders as spawnable enemy tanks. And it weighs in at 56 tons. And as you can see, actually, mobility-wise, it does move. It maneuvers around pretty decent, in my opinion. I wouldn't say it's the fastest thing I ever drove, but still decent. You know, decent mobility, fairly agile. You can see there, is able to penetrate the lower glacis with itself, so that's not all bad. Or, well, maybe if you're facing off against them, that's bad. I don't know. All right, and the next vehicle I have here is from Substep, and this is his LMTK TTS 107. And this is his 100-ton tank. And it's actually a replica of a blueprint tank. It's based on the KV-4 KTTS. And it is armed with a 107 millimeter main gun, and it's got 225 millimeters of penetration. And it is for late war. Now, the only thing I'm not 100% sure of, because it does kind of have a sort of pseudo turret, I don't know if that will actually traverse all the way around. I didn't try to. I'm not sure if there's something he did with the gun arc that allows it to swing around like that. I do believe that's actually the turret, and I do believe you might be able to swing it all the way around just because clipping. You can actually, you can see earlier I was clipping through the front engine deck there, the driver area, if you will. It's a heavy tank, but it does get up and go pretty well. And at 100 tons. Well, I mean, we're getting the E100 weight class here, boys. Either ways, it's a very cool looking vehicle in my opinion. All right, today for the final vehicle, we have the M57C1T1 by deltakimora, and this is his 41.3 ton. I guess you could sort of call it a beam battle tank, because that's what it really is. It seems like it's inspired by the Patton series. Something either maybe along the lines of like the Type 59. Wait, was it the Type 59? Oh my god, I'm having a brain fart. It's the Japanese patent. Ah, god, I have a brain fart. Or the M48 patent, if you will. It does actually have a 90mm gun, and it has 190 millimeters of penetration. It's not bad. It would struggle against some of the really heavy tanks out there, especially from the front. But of course, this thing's actually got some decent mobility, so it's not going to be hard to get around the side of some of those bigger, heavier armored vehicles that this thing would struggle to pen against. And, well, it's actually got some quite effective armor. Every time I was shot in it, the shots bounced, but it's because of the way the turret shaping is, probably more than the armor thickness. Anyway, folks, that's wrapping up today's video for Community Steel. Hopefully you all enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. Please, folks, like and share the video. It does help me grow as a YouTuber. Anyway, folks, once again, have yourself a wonderful day.